Do you sing the Icaros?
Yeah, we use Icaros. There are ceremonies where you use a lot of Icaros, and there are ceremonies where you use less. Icaros are tools that are being used, and there are lots of different kinds of uses of them. But yeah, we absolutely use Icaros, and Icaros are a very important aspect for us of the ayahuasca ceremony. It's part of how you guide the ceremony. It's also part of how you help people. It's how you communicate. A lot of people don't know that Icaros aren't just chants or songs. They're actually a form of communication. And so it's a language that you learn over time. It's tonal. It's it's also kind of sing-songy in its own right. It has its own language, like its own meanings to the words that are being expressed. And there's also this kind of aspect of your extraordinary attention and intention that's being communicated through it. And so it's actually a very powerful tool of the ceremony.
Do you notice it's not just a recital of, but it's a bodily orientation where you open yourself and the way that you use your voice is just as imperative as the song itself? Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, it does. It resonates tremendously. I think the idea of there being a song that can be repeated is not really fully understanding the Icaro. So the Icaro it can be a repetitive pattern, like used night after night after night, the very same one. It can be used for the very same reasons because Icaros have purpose. So there are Icaros to call more visions. There are Icaros to intensify the experience. There are Icaros to help mellow out the experience. There are Icaros to produce healing. There are Icaros to expel darkness and bring in light and open up different realms like astral realms or plant-based spirit realms, etc. So there's all of these different kinds of Icaros, and some are ones that you'll literally learn on the spot. You'll be using for the very first time ever. Others are deeply entrenched in the traditions that have been around for thousands of years. But you, as the practitioner of that Icaro and the channel through which that Icaro is flowing, dramatically changes the purpose and the effect of it. And that's part of the communication. And so you have to not only know the idea of what you want to create with it, but also the state that you're in to adjust for that. So if you're in a really happy place and you express the very same notes, it's very different than if you're in a somber place and express the very same notes. So your own vibration affects it, where you're coming from, what you want to communicate, how you want to communicate it is all part of that expression at that time in that ceremony. The other thing to understand is that for most of us, not all of us, but most of us do not have like a set playlist going into a ceremony, right? You have different heroes and you know that they're there available to be able to use them, but they very are much a different tool. Like this is a hammer, this is a screwdriver, this is a wrench, these are different tools to use at a different time. And so when you go in, you're reading the room, you're reading the people, yourself, you're seeing what the energy of the entire place is like, which goes beyond the people in their own right. And you could have a vast idea of what you think is going to happen and what you would like to ultimately produce in the form of the Icaros, and find out that actually nothing that you thought was going to happen actually is what happens. And you get in there and in real time, the Icaros are flowing in different orders in different ways than you ever would have thought. And you just follow that. So for us, there's this flow state that we get into, and in the moment which Icaros to use because they're being used to guide the next part of the ceremony based on what the different participants in the ceremony are doing. And there are no two ceremonies that are the same, because even if you do ceremonies multiple nights with exactly the same number of people, with exactly the same participants from one ceremony and another, they have changed state. So even if you have everything the same that it would look like from the outside, now the entire group is in a different collective mind state. They're in a different collective consciousness state. They're in a different spiritual state at that time. And so that's going to also affect the nature of the ceremony that night. I think the other thing that's really interesting about Icaros is that a lot of people think that you're using Icaros to respond to what's going on in the room. And it's actually not. It's more like a surfer catches a wave and actually stays in front of the wave, and the wave pushes the surfer. The Icaro is actually for what's happening and for what's to come next in the ceremony, not what we're responding to because of what just happened. And so what's happening next is what matters, and that's actually how you guide. That's how you can stay in front of the ceremony as it's going on.